What's up everyone, I'm Mel from Fortin Amps, and in this video we're dialing in this tone with the Fortin Tempest. Alright, so in this video I'm going to be dialing in that tone that you just heard in the Stinger. If you tuned into my video last week, I showed off that tone in a full mix and in an isolated setting. So if you guys dig this video and you guys want to hear the full demo track, check out last week's video. This week is a little special just because I'm uploading this video because some of the footage that I had from last week got corrupted. So in this video, I'm going to be dialing in that tone again to show you guys how exactly I got this tight, punchy, low-tuned tone. This video is going to be focused on specifically achieving that tight, modern metal sound with a Mesa Boogie dual rectifier. In this video, I'm going to be using a Legator Ninja tuned to drop G with Guitarmery pickups going straight into the Tempest and the Mesa Boogie dual rectifier mic'd up with my vintage 30s and an SM57 going straight into my Apollo. Alright, so enough of that intro, let's get to dialing it in. Alright, so we are here at the setup with the Legator 7-string Ninja tuned to drop G going into the Tempest, then the Mesa dual rectifier, all gated by the Zool Plus. Alright, so just a slight disclaimer, the settings might not be exactly identical to the tone from last week because I had some footage errors and I'm only redoing this section of the video just so I can show you. Some mic placements might have changed and some settings might be slightly off, but I'm going to show you my process on how I got that tone. With all that being said, here's where I ended up. Alright, so I think that's pretty close, and since I'm using the same gear in the same place, it's pretty much there. So I'm going to break down how I got there. So usually what I do when I start dialing in these tones is I actually just do the amp and try to get a basic starting point for the amp. Some people like starting at 12 o'clock. I particularly am going for 12 o'clock as well. So with everything at 12 o'clock, the amp sounds like this with the guitar. Everything sounds pretty solid, standard Mesa, big chonky low end, not as much bite. Even though I try getting really staccato with my chugs and getting really scrapey, it's still not as bright. And that's just the characteristic of the Mesa. Usually a lot of the attack and a lot of the bite is brought in by an overdrive. But I'm going to experiment with the amp just to see what the amp needs in order for me to get it there. So usually, because the muddiness comes from that low end, I'm going to bring back that low end. And the problem notes usually come from when I just do open chugs on the lowest two strings. So I'm going to try to bring back that pick attack by bringing up the treble and playing with the presence. And I'm looking for that scrape. Now that I've ended up there, I kind of like that attack. And then I'm going to play with the mids to taste. I'm going to lay back with the mids on this tone because I usually like to dial in the rhythm tone, and the difference between my lead tones and my rhythm tones is just bringing up the mids just so they poke out a bit more. Since there's not a bunch of lead work on this specific song, I'm going to dial the mids back. And for an amp-only tone, that's where I'd end up. But since I'm going to dial in the Tempest, I'm going to set everything to 12 and just see what the Tempest does. Remember, I was talking about that big scrapey, I want that big, modern, bright, chuggy, full, but tons of attack and tons of transient value on the guitar. So let's listen to the chug. So immediately, it sounds great. It's really punchy. It cuts in. It's really bright. And the Tempest does what I want it to do. But it feels like way too much gain. So I'm going to dial back that gain on the amp. And right away, it's almost exactly where I like it. But now I can dial in a few things. If you notice the low pass and the high pass on the Tempest, those are its most redeeming qualities. I say that because the Tempest is more of a subtractive pedal than an additive pedal. I know engaging it gives you that Fortin characteristic of the big cutting, that cutting bitey tone, but the rest is all subtractive. So you'll notice that bringing up the low end of the Tempest gets you that fullness. It brings in that fullness and can introduce mud. So what I like to do is I like to play around with chugging. And raise it until the amp clears up. And then I want to see if I can bring back actual amp distortion that isn't muddy, or actual amp characteristics that isn't muddy with the bass knob. And now it's just the relationship between the amp and the speaker. So I'm going to dial that back. I dig that for the low end knob, and that's exactly where I want my bass to sit, especially if it were in a mix. And now I'm going to go for actually adjusting the drive. That drive adds a sense of compression. So taking out the drive, you'll notice that versus pulling it back to where it was, I'd play a lot less hard, and a lot of the nuances of my playing either come out way more or are a bit too compressed. So if I wanted to do a bit more like staccato and introduce the distortion myself by picking harder versus, it all depends. So I like it a bit in the middle. And now I'm gonna treat the rest like a boost. So now I'm gonna bring up the level to as much as I can and play with the knob here, the gain knob on the amp, just where it breaks up. And at about 9 o'clock is usually where I can get a full boosted Fortin overdrive into the gain knob and it sound solid. And still, that's a bit too much for my taste, so I'm going to dial that back. And now I play around the high end to dial back or forward that crunch or that attack or the harshness from my guitar. You'll notice that if I dial it all the way back, my pick attack is very muffled and it's not as expressive as it used to be. Opposed to where I bring it back up, so you notice bringing up the high pass is going to give you a lot more cut and a lot more bite to your guitar tone. And just about a little bit boosted or a little bit above 12 is where I like to have it. I'm going to play around with the treble just to see if that actually is where I like it. Sick. And now that's the tone that I would say fits best for this amp, in my opinion, with my setup and my playing. You can notice that the Tempest really brings in a lot of clarity, especially where I'm in the lower register of the guitar, riffing in this area. And turning off the Tempest, getting a lot of the boost and a lot of the bite and a lot of the characteristics from the Tempest into the amp, and then pushing it into the Mesa gives me that big bottom end characteristic. So a lot of the bite comes from the Tempest and a lot of the body comes from the amp. All right, so there you have it. I hope you guys like this video of me dialing in this tone with the Fortin Tempest. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up button, ring the bell for notifications, and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Also, leave a comment down below and let me know if you guys would dial in this tone any differently for this type of tuning. Or if you guys want us to try the Fortin Tempest out with any other amps, let us know in the comment section as well. Again, I'm Mel from Fortin Amps, and I'll see you on the next one.